My guest is currently the only Republican candidate for Rockford Mayor, Michael Kleen. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me on. It's a very pleasure to be here.
Well, we've met on several occasions on a variety of forums, and I was interested when you had thrown your hat in the ring here to become Rockford Mayor. Lots of questions. What do you think you can bring to the mayor's office that isn't there right now?
Well, I think that we always definitely can use a fresh perspective in the mayor's office. And being someone who has lived around Illinois, I can sort of have a grasp of what has been working in other areas and the way that the city could be, especially living in the western suburbs. Some of those cities that don't have the social problems that Rockford has, like our high crime rate, for example. They've been really able to do a lot with their downtown, as we have tried to do here in Rockford, but I believe that until we tackle the crime problem, we really can't get people on to go out en masse. And that's one of the observations that I've made, having lived in these other areas of the city and of Illinois.
You mentioned crime, and I noticed that that's one of your top talking points or agendas related to your pursuit of this office. Maybe I'm very cynical, having spent a career in broadcasting and news for the most part, but what do you think the mayor as a single individual can do to address the crime problem?
Well, that's a good question, because of course the mayor is very limited in what his official powers are. But I think that the mayor can really provide a vision and set the priorities for the city. And I believe that in the past 8 years, Mayor Morrissey seems to have abandoned any kind of pretense about dealing with that issue. And I think that if the bully pulpit of the mayor's office was used to really hammer home that this is what we're going to focus on getting crime under control and get the economy moving again, rather than be distracted by other issues, I think that would go a long way.
When I hear you say get crime under control, I guess I have visions of a heavy-handed approach to crime and punishment, if you will, more on the punishment side. Because while you and I understand this, and I think most people realize that you can't curb evil, you can't know what somebody's intentions are before they do something violent or aggressive, but the response to that is really what we're talking about. Am I understanding you correct here?
Yes. There's always going to be psychopaths. There's always going to be people who don't understand right from wrong, or who simply don't care,
right,
and are going to commit crimes. But I think that if you have a lenient attitude towards petty crimes, vandalism, things of that nature, that's going to lead people to believe they can get away with more, and it's going to spread. There's been several studies on that if there are a lot of abandoned buildings in an area, if an area looks like it's not kept up, people generally behave more badly, I guess I could say.
Let's go to the phones. Jake, welcome to the show, and my guest, Michael Kleen.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kleen.
Yes.
So I would take it you meant that by your filing, you have not been anointed by the powers that be in the Republican Party.
I certainly am trying to get their support, and I would be very happy to receive their support, but I was the one who decided to run and file, and so I take that responsibility for my own actions.
Okay, do you think that they will ever come around to understanding that there are a certain amount of blue-collar workers out here that do vote Republican?
Well, that's a very good question, and one of the focuses of my campaign is going to be reaching out to those people out there who have not felt traditionally included in the Republican Party. And one of my focuses is going to be reaching out to those communities and trying to get more people involved, and people like yourself.
Well, I'm retired now, but when I did work, I was a member of a union, Teamsters Union, and 40% of the Teamsters were registered Republicans, but you never saw a Republican knock on your door. They just figured, well, he's in the union, he's voting D.
Yeah, and that's an attitude that needs to change.
For quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for the call, Jake. I appreciate it. My guest is Michael Kleen. He is the Republican candidate for Rockford mayor, and we've been talking about some of the issues that he believes strongly in, and we'll probably come back around to crime, and because you have been quoted as saying that unless the crime problem is addressed, or if the crime problem is addressed properly, you believe prosperity can follow from that. Explain that a little bit.
Well, this is sort of a little hobby horse of mine, I guess you could say. I believe strongly that crime and the economy are linked. And I think that until we get the crime under control, the most obvious example would be property values. We all know that property values are low in Rockford. That's one of the appealing things about the city of Rockford, is that home values and housing are affordable. But there's a reason for that, because there are a lot of neighborhoods that people simply don't want to move into. And there are people who have purchased their homes, and of course things are bad because of the housing bubble, but it's exacerbated in Rockford because there are neighborhoods where there are perfectly nice homes that should be valued at in the upper $100,000, $200,000, but they're selling for $50,000 because nobody wants to move into those areas. And if we get the crime under control, I think that people will feel safer, and generally, property values will go up. The other thing is about crime, there was an incident recently out on Perryville Road. There was a new business that opened up. I believe it was called TNT Video Games. They had a mascot out there. They're trying to attract attention to their business. The guy was dressed up as Mario from Super Mario Brothers. And a group of thugs drove up, got out of their car, beat him up, and got back in their car and drove off. And that sends a message to other businesses that want to come here to Rockford, doesn't it? I mean, that's a very negative view of the city, and people see that constantly, and it really has a drag on the economy. I try to describe crime as a kind of hidden tax that drains productivity and efficiency out of the marketplace. Last year, in order to save money, the city of Rockford turned off 2,300 streetlights. And that does nothing to increase the sense of public safety. I think that was a very bad decision. And I think that if we reprioritize the budget to public safety, we could find the funds to keep the streetlights on.
I saw an old photograph from the late 50s or early 60s of downtown Rockford. Now, at that time, it was a bustling department store-laden environment. This is pre-malls. Lots of activity. DJ Stewart was a giant department store downtown. They had multiple multi-level parking garages. Now you don't have to fight for parking at all downtown. But the light standards had 3 lights blossoming. It could have been midnight. The place looked like daylight down there. Don't you think, though, that the lights will follow if the businesses are there, or do you think the lights should be turned on first and then everybody comes in?
Well, yeah, it's a chicken and egg type of situation, and I do believe that we need to turn the lights on first, because if there is a darkened street, and I'm not just talking about retail areas, but residential as well, but in those retail areas, if it's an area where people don't feel safe, if there aren't lights, if it's kind of murky, people aren't going to want to go and shop there, or they're not even going to know that there are shops over there to go to. So I think safety comes first, and people will follow. Once they feel a warm and welcoming atmosphere, they'll want to come and spend their money at those stores.
My guest is Michael Kleen. He is running for mayor in the city of Rockford as a Republican.